car fixed yet? It's the Studebaker. Yeah, the one with the little doggy in the window that goes...
The episode she can't rewatch, Carol Burnett is famous for making millions laugh. Over 11 seasons of her hit TV show, she brought joy, clever sketches, and unforgettable characters into living rooms across America. But in 1977, she did something different, something that surprised everybody. She filmed an episode that struck such a deep emotional chord with her that she has never watched it again, not once in over 40 years. Crew members say they were moved to tears. Critics called it one of her most powerful performances. Awards followed, but Carol said it was too real. It reminded her of her own pain, her lifelong struggles, and her early days of hardship. Despite loving the art of performance, that one sketch felt too close to home, too raw, too personal, and so she decided not to watch it. For a woman who spent her career on live stage, that line she drew tells us something deep about the cost of true authenticity. A lonely, hard childhood, Carol's life didn't start with laughter and applause. Born in 1933 in San Antonio, Texas, she grew up in a home torn apart by her parents' alcoholism. Her mother and father were loving in moments, but alcohol often took over. Carol often felt forgotten, unloved, and alone. By the time she was 3, both her parents were deeply lost in addiction. She was left in the care of her grandmother, Mabel. In 1940, they moved to Hollywood, hoping for a fresh start. But life didn't get easier. They lived in a small, rundown boarding house among people with their own troubles. Poverty, addiction, and mental illness were common. Every week, Carol and her grandmother survived on only $20. Mabel did her best to give Carol love and stability. And in that unstable world, Carol learned to cope with humor. She invented a pretend twin sister, Karen, a version of herself who was confident, beautiful, and carefree. She changed her clothes, her hair, and her manner so her fellow tenants would think Karen was a real person. That little game revealed two things. Carol had an early talent for performance, and she deeply needed joy in a world that gave her very little. Comedy as escape and armor. Even as a child, Carol knew laughter had power. She and her grandmother would go to the movies every Saturday. Tickets cost 25 cents each, more than 10% of their weekly income, but it was worth every penny. On screen, Carol saw a world filled with stars, romance, color, and order, everything she didn't have. When the lights dimmed and the film rolled, she forgot the peeling walls of their boarding house. She felt hope. One day, she heard Johnny Weissmuller's famous Tarzan yell, and she began practicing it obsessively at home. She didn't realize then that she was learning breath control and vocal projection skills she would use in her comedy career. That pure, unplanned experiment became a building block of her artistic toolkit. Laughter was not just entertainment, it was her shield. It was how she protected herself from a cruel world. And comedy became her armor and her escape. From college journalism to center stage, Carol dreamed of becoming a journalist, inspired partly by her mother's unfulfilled creative wishes. After high school, she aimed to attend UCLA, but she was short $50 for tuition, about $600 today. That's when a kind stranger quietly paid for her to attend, no strings attached. At UCLA, she intended to study journalism, but she accidentally walked into a drama class and something inside her lit up. Suddenly, the shy, hungry girl from Texas felt strong and alive. Professors and classmates noticed her talent, too, and she switched majors. Before long, she was winning awards and earning recognition in theater. She believed she could be a serious performer. It was risky to shift her dreams, but she was no longer just surviving. She was dreaming. That courage paid off. By the time she graduated, she'd won top honors in theater and felt ready to take on the world. The great move to New York in 1954. Another generous stranger, this time a wealthy shipbuilder, gave Carol $1,000 to move to New York City with her boyfriend, Don Soroyan. The only conditions were to use the money only for the move, to remain anonymous, and to help others if they succeeded. With no plan and no backup, they arrived in New York, broke, scared but determined. They slept at the rehearsal club, living with other aspiring actresses, and Carol hopped from auditions to waitressing jobs. Work was scarce. One night, she cried during a collect phone call home, unsure if she made the right choice. But fate intervened. A radio warning about Hurricane Carol felt like a personal sign. She stayed. Their first big break came through. a ridiculous comedic song about Secretary of State John Foster Dulles, campy and sincere. Carol's performance got her TV appearances on Jack Paar and Ed Sullivan. By 1959, she collapsed Broadway's Once Upon a Mattress, which earned her a Tony nomination. It was confirmation that she belonged on stage and that her blend of humor and sincerity was her calling. Rise of the Carol Burnett Show in 1967. Carol launched the Carol Burnett Show, a comedy and variety hit that changed television. Nearly every week, 30 million viewers would tune in. Carol led the show with creativity, warmth, and fearlessness. She wasn't afraid to fall flat on her face or let a comedic bit go off script. She often did sketches with Harvey Korman and Tim Conway, whose improvisations led to moments of genuine laughter even on camera. The show won 25 Emmy Awards over its run, including Emmys for Carol herself in 1977 and 1978. It gave birth to memorable characters, iconic sketches, and raised the bar for women in comedy. Carol used her platform to champion behind-the-scenes talent and bring bold new voices to TV. Her emotional range made her stand out, not only comic relief, but also emotional depth. But amidst all the laughter backstage and on-air, Carol still carried her past with her. That vulnerability would find expression in the television moment she still cannot bear to watch. The 1977 sketch, When Comedy Meets Tragedy in 1977. During the 7th season of her show, Carol and the team filmed a sketch that would shake them all. Called The Gong Show, she played Eunice Higgins, a woman so full of disappointment and crushed dreams that the scene had no punchline, no audience laughs, no silly punch. She sang her heart out, only to be mocked by judges, including Alan London. Playing himself, Carol performed in silence, tears streaming, as the camera pulled back to show a broken woman. The studio crew, a group used to jokes and laughter, sat in stunned silence. Even they felt the moment rip through their carefully constructed comedic shell. The sketch aired once and critics praised its honesty. Awards followed. But for Carol, it was too real. She had lived this shame and pain. It wasn't acting. It was raw confession. And the experience was so painful that she refused to watch it again. No recording, no reruns, no comfort in hindsight. She said, "It felt like looking at the mirror of my own life and I was not ready to face it." Legacy, loss, and why she walked away. The emotional toll of that moment lasted long after the camera switched off. The Gong Show spun out into a TV movie called Eunice and eventually into a sitcom, Mama's Family. But for Carol, the original sketch remained untouchable. She said in interviews that the pain was too much, that Eunice's tears on stage belonged to her. Meanwhile, her personal life mirrored the heartbreak of her characters. Her first marriage to Don Soroyan ended in 1962, strained by ambition and loss. Her second marriage to producer Joe Hamilton lasted until 1984 and included caring for 3 daughters, one of whom, Carrie Hamilton, struggled with addiction before dying of cancer in 2002. Through it all, Carol's compassion and sacrifice gave her resilience, but also deep scars. When the Gong Show sketch aired, she saw her own story reflected. The broken dreams, the lonely fights that even success couldn't erase. She realized that comedy isn't always enough to heal. Laughter might protect, but sometimes it also reveals. Final reflections. Why it still matters. So why does this matter today, nearly 50 years later? Because in that moment of performance, we see the contradiction of Carol Burnett's life. She made the world laugh, but she lived through pain many remain silent about. The decision to never watch the sketch again is an act of self-love. It's a boundary between performance and reality. It's saying, you can laugh with me, but not through my pain. For viewers, it teaches something vital about art and empathy. A comedian can be funny and broken. A show can heal and hurt. Carol's choice to protect herself is a reminder that genuine human experience doesn't always fit neatly into a script. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away. And maybe that's why we still care, because we see our own hopes, our own hurts in that performance.